We are officially live on YouTube for the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Today is the JWB Investor of the Week. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the man that I affectionately like to call Greg, GC, because he's got the genius concepts. He knows how to generate cash flow. He's a great co-host, and because his parents called him Gregg Cohen at birth. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you.
And with us, as always, we call her MTM because she brings us the moments that matter. And because around here, she goes by the name Madison the Magnificent. Say hello, Madison.
Hi, everybody.
And back for the third time, awaiting his legendary blazer emblazoned with the JWB Not Your Average Investor Show logo. He is the head of the Passive Income Club at Fortune Builders. We have introduced him in the past as the Jason Statham of real estate until I met him in Vegas and I realized, no, sir, this man is way more attractive in person than he looks on Zoom. Jason Statham doesn't hold a candle to him. He is a show favorite, real estate expert, manages over $1 billion in real estate.
With a B.
With a B.
A B.
And invests with JWB, here to storytell and make fun of us and bounce things around with us. Paul Shively, welcome back to the show, man.
It's good to be here, guys. We were talking earlier. It's like, is it strange that this feels like home for me? This just feels like home. I'm just so comfortable. Like, Pablo, you're one of those guys that I don't talk to for 4 months, and then within 30 seconds of talking to each other, we're right back to it, man. And you just pick up right where we left off. I love it.
Agreed.
Thanks for having me.
Greg, was that a good enough intro for him? You said I had to give him a proper.
You know what? I think you brought your A- game. I just want, I know there's a little bit left in the tank. That was good. But listen, you know who we have here. I mean, let's make sure we step up.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
Oh, man. No, I think you did pretty good.
That's what I thought. All right. I want to welcome everybody. If you're watching on YouTube, you're listening on the podcast, love having you. If you're feeling a little left out on the lingo, on the knowledge, on the real estate wisdom, I got a little suggestion for you. GC and I put together a class that will take you from zero to knowing what you're talking about when it comes to passive real estate rental property investing. It's over at NYAIclass.com. You can get it for free for a limited time up until maybe a week. It's running out.
Less than that. June 19th.
June 19th. In 4 days, it's going to cost $1,000. So if you want to get it for free right now, go to NYAIclass.com, put in the code NYAI guide free. In under 2 hours, you're going to be able to tune into the next show and just listen for inside jokes, because you're not going to be wondering what the acronyms are, what the decision-making criteria is, all the different things that you need to know. So I highly, highly encourage. Anything you want to add to that?
It's a quick start guide. If you are somebody who maybe has never invested in rental properties before, but you sort of have the itch, you want to learn about it, go to this class, because in those 2 hours, it's broken down into videos that are 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes long. You can decide what you need a little bit more training on, what you need a little bit more to get comfortable investing in this asset class that's built for you. It's also for some of you who may have 2, 5, 10 rental properties, and you want to see what it's like to get to a portfolio of 100, 300, even more than that. This class for you. You can learn how to scale in this asset class to really accomplish those financial goals.
Quick correction. Lee Bishop also deserves a jacket. He's been on the show 3 times.
That is true.
Just saying.
We might need a jacket for a lot of people.
We might need some jackets. We might need some jackets out here. All right. Now that we have that out of the way, we get to do our little ritual. You know what it is, Paul? How we kick off the show every time?
The show has evolved and grown over the years, and I'm loving where this is going. So I don't know this ritual, but I'm very excited.
Tell him what he's in store for, GC.
The roll call, baby.
We got our leadoff hitter, John. We got our leadoff hitter in the house.
John Henning.
John Henning with a good afternoon. We got the MVP of the show, also a jacket recipient. His name is
Lee Bishop.
Mr. Lee Bishop. We got Big Papa in the house. We love it when he calls him Big Papa.
Pops, how are you?
Gregg Cohen's dad throws his hands up in the air like a true player, as we all know. We got our friend from the West Coast of the United States with a good morning, good afternoon, JWB family.
Mr. Nadeem Shah.
We got the ringmaster of the Not Your Average Investor Show community.
Andrew Barnhill.
We got the early bird of the Not Your Average Investor Show
Mr. Dean Curry.
Mr. Dean Curry. We got Martine Dorleans.
New name. Hey, welcome to the party.
Welcome to the show. We love having you. We got Leo Faraganan.
Dun, 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 dun.
Faraganan.
Dun, 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 dun.
With a good morning all for Bay Area, California. Let's rock. We got Layla Powell back in the house. Good to have you.
Great to see you.
We got Lewis Hudnell with our favorite place to mispronounce.
California.
We got Chris Gonzaga.
From the illustrious Hudson Valley.
Illustrious Hudson Valley of New York. We got the real estate maven from the mountains of Colorado.
Leslie Wilson.
Leslie Wilson, good to have you in the house. We got Tamara Gamison. Good morning from Colorado Springs. New name.
Oh, new name.
New name. Tamara,
Welcome,
good to
welcome.
have you. Make yourself comfortable. We got the Mountain Man.
Billy Green.
Billy Green from the sunny mountains of Colorado. Good to have you, Billy Green.
Impossible not to have a smile on your face when the mountain man's around.
The Mountain Man. We got Michael Becca back in the house. Good to have you, Michael.
Great to see you.
We got Cellophane Alcina from Florida. Another new name.
Lots of new names. Welcome, welcome.
Shively, you must have a lot of fans, buddy. A lot of new names out here. We got Charles Corte. Another new name.
All right. We
Good
love
to have
that.
you.
Charles, great to be here.
We got Mark Mills in the house. Mark, good to
Right.
have you. We got Jeff Bolton back in the house. Jeff, we miss you when you're not around,
Great
sir.
to see you, Jeff.
Good to have you. We got Ali Abdullah,
All
another new
right.
name in the house. Good
Wow.
to have you. We got Denny Davis, recently relocated to Arkansas with a paid suing.
I don't know if I can get used to his welcome now. I mean, we're gonna have to.
I've never seen Arkansas as a rival for Florida, and calling the pigs is one of the greatest
Okay.
college traditions
All right.
that there are.
I was gonna say we need to have Sergio Prieto say hello right after the Woo Pig Suey, just to make sure that we've got our Go Gators balancing.
You're
in
right.
there.
You're right. We got Madison Holder in the house. Good to have you, Madison. We got the first family of the Not Your Average Investor Show, the matriarch and patriarch, Carolyn and Ken Moline.
We salute you.
Who else we got out here? We got Samuel Lopez, another new name. We got Serge Borbos in the house. Serge, I
Long
think-
time client.
Yeah,
Great to see you,
you've been here
Serge.
Before we got John Moran back in the house
There
from
we
Port St.
go.
Lucie. I love Port St. Lucie. There's a dog beach over that I used to love to surf at. We got Diana Meehan, also a Fortune Builders graduate. New name.
Fantastic.
Make
So much
yourself
Fortune
at
Builders
home.
love
Yep,
here.
Make yourself at home here in the community. Brenda Ellenberg seems to resonate with a Woo Pig Suey. Brenda, good to have you here as well.
Great to see you.
All right. This is Lita Song from Minnesota, Alana Jackson from Las Vegas, where Paul and I first met face to face. Very nice. We got BJ McKay back in the house. BJ, good to have you.
Long-time client.
Lowry Bennett, Efrain Torres, good to have you from San Jose, California. Tom Inman in the house. Esther Flores. We could be doing roll call all day
Goodness,
with how
man.
popular Paul is.
You know what? He brings the fire.
Yeah, agreed. And our favorite segment of the week is when Madison shares good news. Madison, what's the good news?
All right, everybody. I will make this short and quick because I know we're really excited to hear Paul talk. I know I am. But we just had a really cool opportunity that I wanted to share with everybody here on the show. We are looking for a guest investor to come on and be the star of the show on July 6th. So if you're interested and you are part of our community, we love to hear all about our community. We love the knowledge they bring, the advice they bring. Everybody has a different perspective. You can send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat, but it's madison@jwbcompanies.com. That's all I got.
I love it. And we would love to have a new member of our community or a returning member of our community. Come on, jump in the hot seat. Just do really what Shively is doing here and what Sachi Singh was just on the client journey doing a week ago. This client journey is such a cool opportunity for everybody to learn from you, from your spotlight, from your platform. And then what I always do is I always break down your portfolio and show you all of your returns from all 5 profit centers. So we actually run a fair market value analysis of the market value of your homes with us. And it's really cool to see your internal rate of return. And then you can compare that, what a great decision it was to invest with JWB versus maybe some other traditional options out there. So a really cool moment for you and cool moment for the community. So I hope you reach out to Madison and fill that spot.
You know what I call the opportunity to be a guest investor?
What's that?
I call it good news. All right. Somebody just asked. I don't blame you. Somebody's asking, what's this webinar about? Lowry's asking, what's this webinar about? Lowry, this is an episode. We do the show twice a week about multiple things, real estate investing, education, not thinking like an average investor, stuff like that. Today, last week, Greg and I got into this rant about how there is a changing tide of the way that people look at real estate. The old way was this idea that real estate is for real estate investors.
Mhm.
It is for real estate people that wear real estate hats and think about real estate and know real estate deals. And what's happening right now in America is that the institutions that we used to always be able to count on, there's been a lot of change.
Mhm.
A lot of things are in flux. The way that people approach retirement that has historically worked, the data is really eye-opening on how much it's not working for
Sure.
people.
Mhm.
So as this is happening, it's also coinciding with the idea that information is free these days, technology is easier to do things, and the ability to do real estate has become exponentially easier if you can surround yourself with the right people and the right partnerships and the right education. So we're seeing this growing trend of people that don't consider themselves real estate investors invest in real estate from the standpoint of, I just want to build a better retirement portfolio. I want to make sure that my retirement is going to be as good or better than the thing that I got promised when I first started working when I was 25 years old or 22 years old. So that's what this show is going to be about. GC, I'll let you kind of like cue up the conversation with Paul.
Yeah, and I think that this is such an important time to look at retirement accounts and the planning that goes into that with a fresh perspective, because, there's a lot of data to show that when you are going into recessionary times, like many people believe, many of the smartest people in the room believe that, we are entering tough economic times, recessionary times. When you look at the data between where normal retirement accounts are right now and how normal retirement accounts fare going into recessionary times, it's not good, right? The average decline in the S&P 500 is a 29% decline over the recessions that have happened since World War II. So if you have an indication that you are going into recessionary times, and you know that in recessionary times, the stock market does not do well and on average loses 29% of value, this is a great inflection point for you to look at your retirement accounts. And I love what you're saying as far as a new, fresh perspective of what real estate can do for you. Because if you actually spend a little bit of time understanding how the 5 profit centers of rental property investing work, and you understand how that experience can be a positive experience, what you can do is just build a better, more diversified financial portfolio and be prepared for, an environment where many people feel like a victim going into a recession. You can feel like you are in control. And so I've been able to see this between JWB's clients for 17 years. And the greatest thing, and the reason why I wanted to ask Shively to be on the phone with us today and on the call with us, is because Paul and I have together built so many portfolios specifically helping folks build a better retirement account. And I thought there'd be no person better than Paul, who manages over $1 billion of real estate investments and also invests with JWB and also has helped thousands of investors build that better retirement account, to talk about it. And what have you seen, Paul? Right? Can you share some of the stories maybe that you've seen and how you've been able to help folks, invest in real estate and not be traditional assets?
First of all, do you agree with what we're saying, Paul? Like I see you nodding your head there.
Yeah, 100%, man. And this is why I love, it's flattering to be on here for 3 times, of course, right? I love that.
You're in good company with Lee.
But I also love great company with Lee. I haven't met Lee yet, but I know he's a great guy no matter what. If you're willing to hang out with him 3 times, then that says all I need to know. Lee, you and I can be besties anytime you want. And maybe I have met Lee. I don't know, but I don't remember Lee. So Lee, if I have met you, I apologize. But no, I agree 100% with what you guys are saying, right? That's why I still do what I do, right? It's why I still wake up in the morning instead of just hanging out with my kids all day, which I love to do as well. But it's, I think, I played team sports growing up, and I've always liked being a part of something bigger than just myself, right? And that's why I love being a part of the Fortune Builders community, why I love being a part of the JWB community, is that ability to give back and help expand the community and grow it and help them experience some of the same things that I've experienced, right, in my life, right? And Greg, I think you hit the nail on the head. When everything's good, it's easy to kind of say, oh, well, everything's good. And kind of some of the normal institutions, the stock market, the real, the kind of normal traditional investment paths seem great, right? You don't have to really worry about it. But when we see those bumps in the road that happen, and we know historically, if we study it, they happen pretty regularly, right? They happen at least once every 7 years or so in the stock market, right? Almost a traditional full reset in the stock market, where people get kind of wiped out sometimes. It happened in my family. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. When things are tough, that's when we start to say, oh, well, how do I get more in control? Like you said, Greg, how do I control my own fate and my own destiny? How do I control, and what my coach used to tell me is dominate the controllables, right? And that's our job. And I feel like why I love the community so much is how do we help the community dominate those controllables with their own financial picture and financial future, right? And our widget just happens to be real estate that we're in for a lot of various reasons, right? If we could do the same thing, and my joke is like, if I could do the same thing with like an alpaca farm that I can do with real estate, I would do it. but I can't, right? Real estate has some unique things that you teach a lot about in the show. So I'm happy to be here. I love being here. I love the ability to give back and help grow the community, grow their investment base, and help them take that control of their financial future for sure.
That's awesome, man. I guess I would love to hear from your perspective. I was really impressed with I literally just put in the chat right now, like your presentation at Ignite this last year, the way that you were able to package like a learning woven inside of a story. As a guy that is nerdy about communication and public speaking, and I really admire it.
Sure. Yeah.
I walked away really impressed, man. And I was hoping that you could bring some of that here today, right? Like I would love to hear you storytell a little bit and see if maybe we can pick some meat out of the bone there.
Sure, for sure. Happy to. Thank you. I appreciate that. I can get long-winded. How much time would you like me to spend on this as well too? Because I want to make sure I fit into the show and leave time for questions and all that, like you guys do. So how long?
You should give yourself 10 minutes right now. These are your 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Just like with my son, I like to set expectations before we do something to make sure I fit into it. Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for that nice compliment about Ignite. I basically just told my own story about my own family. So I'll ask for forgiveness now if I get emotional about it on the show. But I've seen, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about sharing and teaching and helping investors, because I've seen what real estate can do for myself and how it can change my own family's, not just financial trajectory, but also just how we live our lives, right? So kind of give the highlights here. I got lucky, right? I think luck is when preparation meets opportunity, but I got lucky. I hooked in with Dan Merrill and Paul Sajan and Greg Yu early in my life, right? When I was 20, 21, 22 years old, I was early adopter into real estate. And so I kind of got a little bit of an unfair advantage in that I just did what those around me were doing, and they were investing in real estate. So the first $20,000 I was scraping together, I bought a house, right? Just because that's what I learned. And I think that's fairly normal for people. You do what you are around, right? And I think what I like this opportunity to do is help people be around that to make that normal versus what usually people are doing is as soon as they get their emergency fund, they start putting it towards a financial advisor, putting it towards a stock market, and that produces a certain result. And our results and the story I'll tell is a bifurcation of those results. So I started investing, was pretty disciplined about, Fan and Paul told me to do something, I did it, right? And the Fortune Builders way and the JWB way started accumulating rental properties. And I don't want to get too, into the weeds, but a couple years into my marriage, I got married young at 25. And then I got sick. I got really pretty sick myself, right? And I'm fine now. I'm good. I'm happy. This isn't a downer story, right? But I got sick and I wasn't able to work for, almost 6 months, right? And I was on bed rest for 2 of those months, right? I was in the hospital for 3, it was bad, right? Like I got really sick. They had to cut me open and patch me up. And that whole, my trajectory of my life really changed. And I was newly married. A lot of things could have happened that added a lot of stress into my life, like turbulent times, right? And it's interesting because we're kind of going through some of those same turbulent times where families are experiencing economic turbulence, which can add stress. But the cool thing is, newly married, sick, laid up in bed, we didn't have to worry about finances. We didn't have to worry about paying the bills. I didn't have to ask my parents for money. I didn't have to do any of that because I had passive income coming in from those rental properties I had bought, right? And my dad was blown away. My dad was shocked. My dad came down and visited me. My mom came down and took care of me for a couple of weeks and everything. My wife was overwhelmed because, we're new, young, married couple. And they kind of kept asking, like, are you okay financially? It's like, yeah, I am, right? Like, we're good. We've got rental income coming in, and here's how this works. And our bills are paid, and we're fine, and we're good. And their minds were blown. Their minds were just blown. They thought it was fake. Right? They thought I don't know what they thought, if I was Breaking Bad on the side. I don't know, right? Like, I don't know what they thought. They wouldn't actually tell me. But what hit me was, I was able to take that 3, 6, 9 months off of not really doing anything. But my dad wasn't, right? Like my mom was able to come down, but my dad could only come down once a month-ish or so because he's a dentist and he was on call and couldn't really take off the weekends because he had patients to be around. So he's tied to his job, right? Mm-hmm. And that was what he would experience. So I love my dad. My dad and I are very close, but he wasn't really able to be there for me, right? Mm-hmm. During that time. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, a whole bunch of years, I still do what I do, right? That was a formative experience for me. I'm in real estate. I still build my own portfolio. I do what we call stacking rentals and stacking syndication investments. So every year, at a minimum, I make sure I put at least a couple more investments into my portfolio, bare minimum, right? Move hell or high water to make that happen, right? And it just accumulates over time. And really the big fast forward is I had tried to convince my dad to be doing the same thing. And it's not rocket science. Just buy solid real estate, make sure it cash flows, make sure it hits your investment objectives, and then just keep going, right? And don't wait for all the green lights in your life to line up. Just start going, start doing it. And he didn't, right? I was pulling teeth from him. And so what I started doing was just buying rentals and setting them aside. And actually the one I shared at Ignite was, Greg, one of yours, Rogero Road, right? 3026 Rogero Road. You guys can look it up, right? And part of my presentation was how that one investment has 6x'd, right? For over that time period. It's pretty crazy. I'm happy to, shameless plug, to be on the 4th time. Maybe I can come back and teach about how
we're going to take a look. You don't know this yet, but we're going to talk about your portfolio. We're going to talk about the returns are, what the returns are. So don't even worry. We'll bring you back to 4th time regardless, but you good.
I love it. So
you might have to arm wrestle Lee.
Rentals, so like Rogero. Oh, sorry.
You might have to arm wrestle Lee, but
there's
a chance. There's a chance.
I love it. But like I started stacking some of those and started just setting aside some of those rentals specifically for my dad and specifically for my mom. I didn't really even tell them about it, right? But they kind of got slow with their investments, didn't really do anything, just took the normal path, right? And, then their retirement account got completely wiped out, right? Like a lot of people's did, right? And then it happened again recently, where a lot of this economic volatility, their stock market, it's just, they're out of sync with their goals for retirement because they're not in control. They're giving up that control and allowing the so-called professionals, and they're professionals. I'm not like demeaning the normal financial world, but they just didn't have anything in their portfolio that they were in charge of, it, they could control, that they knew how to predict the outcome for, which we in real estate know how to predict the outcome, right? And again, the fast forward is I've been doing this on the side, hadn't really been telling my dad about it. And then he gets sick, like bad, right? So he got diagnosed, had some really bad diagnoses, just bad medical luck, right? Stuff happens. And I was able to take time off, go up there, go to all the appointments, go to the surgery, go hang out, go help him recover, drop everything I was doing because I know my bills were taken care of, right? And part of his biggest thing, he actually came out of surgery and was all woozy and whatnot. And like, he finally got the real answer from my own father when he's on a bunch of drugs, right? And his main question was like, oh, do I have to go back to work? I really don't want to go back to work. How am I going to pay for this? How am I going to do this? And he had a lot of financial stress. I could really tell. And it was heartbreaking for me to see that, but it was really cool moment because at that moment I was able to say, no, you don't. You don't have to, right? Like I got you, right? And it wasn't a me thing. It wasn't a pride thing. It was like, hey, our family, it was because I invest every dollar I get is a dollar for the family, for the broader family, for my brother. He's in the military, right? And so I've got his family taken care of. I got my parents taken care of. So every dollar for me is a dollar for the family, not just for my immediate. And I had done the math already, right? Like in the back, I had done the math and I got some information from my mom and I had been able to kind of get and parcel out what their monthly bills were and how what they needed to survive, but then also what they needed to thrive in retirement, right? And I was able to say, okay, my portfolio that I had built, the part that I had parceled off from my dad, covered their bills and then a little bit more than that, which was awesome, right? And so I was able to kind of give that gift to him. It was a cool moment as a son, and of course there's some pride in there, but it really wasn't about me. It was about them having the ability to have that freedom because we worked to control the outcome versus leaving it up to chance, right? And something we couldn't control. And that was a cool experience, right? And then now we've really got him jump started. Now he's really cranking. He is healthy now, which is awesome. He beat it. He's doing great. We sat down and did his whole bucket list. So in 2 weeks, we're going to Bandon Dunes. Greg, I'm still waiting for the invite to go on your guys' trip to Bandon Dunes, but I'm taking my dad this time, which is like golf heaven, which is fun. And he's chosen to go back to work for a couple of years because he isn't quite ready mentally to retire. We know that generation, and that's fine. But he has a lot less stress now because he doesn't have to work, right? And then what we've done is supercharge his portfolio. So all he's not chucking money kind of towards that unknown. he's now chucking money towards stacking rentals and syndications himself, which is where he gets to really jumpstart and kind of build his portfolio how he wants to as well, which is really cool, right? So I guess the theme of the story is, begin with the end in mind, right? Which is what I wanted to do from 2022. I started investing with the end in mind to have that freedom and not have to worry about the bills because of my young experience when I got sick. And it helped my dad out later in life a lot, right? And so I'll pause there because we can unpack as much of that. I think I took my 10 minutes. I think I'll pause there.
You nailed it, dude. You're like 10 minutes on the dot.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I mean, this guy, I'm
True
impressed.
professional.
I'm impressed. It's making me feel funny.
I love everything about that story, Paul. I've gotten to know your dad. I've met him, and
Yeah.
I've obviously been a friend of yours for, 15 years now.
Yeah.
And, and that story it's never lost on me. It's one of those stories that I get to remember from one of our clients or one of my friends. And, this is a lot more than just making a few dollars here or just beating, the stock market or what have you. This is about, your why. And it's when you get the opportunity to work with somebody who has a clearly defined why, like you do, that's what I love, man. That's what I love. I took a couple of notes on the things that you said, and I think they're very different than what most people think, right? Even in real estate too, right? You talked about stacking rentals.
Yeah.
Right. To me, that means buy and hold, right? We're for me, what I used to say when I started investing in 2006, I wanted to build an army of income producing assets, right? Stacking rentals, army of income producing assets. It's built on this idea that, the value here is getting the asset in your portfolio and then letting it do what it does. Because what it does is provide a very consistent and stable and above average return, right? And so many people focus on, is this the best deal because I'm getting $25 a month in cash flow or this or that, but you, myself, Pablo, who owns 3 rental properties, for those who don't know as well, we're constantly talking about stacking rental. We're talking about getting assets into our portfolio. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of shed some light on that. I don't know if that's a good thing for maybe to pass the baton to you, right? Why does it make sense for you to stack rentals? Why does it make sense for you to get assets into your portfolio? Because that's a very different thing than like being a deal finder.
Yeah.
And buying and selling, right?
Yeah. It started for me with just really listening to you about this like army of income producing properties, like that. Like I think it's really hard to host this show. And for those of you that are joining us for the first time, I knew nothing about real estate on January 2020. And I became the host of the show just because I know how to talk to people, right?
It was your volleyball game. Played volleyball.
You're right. I really,
which, by the way, Paul Shiley,
yeah,
great volleyball too.
Yeah. I've heard he's almost as good as we are. So after a year of surrounding myself with the right people, the community, right? Like it was impossible for me not to just be like, I want a piece of this, right? That's the beginning. But what really opened up for me, the reason why I'm so into it is also a tie to my father, right? Paul, like my dad is in his late 70s right now. He has been a successful entrepreneur his whole, all of my life. And he's had a couple of like big hits, and he's got like a couple of home runs, and he's always done very well for himself. And for the first time ever, starting around beginning of 2022, when the stock market started, taking some lumps, I'd be sitting around with him and be like, just I want to do that, but not right now, because my retirement portfolio right now just took a haircut, and my monthly cash flow and blah, 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 blah. And that really opened my eyes to this idea of like, dude, this guy's rich. Like, why is he worried about money?
Right.
And really starting to understand these mechanics of like the cash flow today versus cash flow tomorrow. This idea that you would say this early on, this idea that it's inverted. The priorities are inverted, right? Like if we are working our whole lives to get to this like one big number, like ING like to promote, and then all of a sudden we're in retirement and that number is there, and that number goes from being this number to this number, that shouldn't affect your life, right? Like that's not how you set yourself up to succeed. You should set yourself up to succeed by optimizing for a growing amount of cash flow and stability, not optimizing for fear. And now having this thing that you can't touch if something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm so obsessed with it is I'm in love with this idea of a cash growth portfolio where I'm not I'm not optimizing for like maximum net worth to then put somewhere and then like be afraid to touch. I want to optimize for like stability and cash flow later in life, and knowing that that's not going to go up or down, and I'm always going to have the most options I can. And I've realized that these rental properties are a better tool to do that than a 401k IRA that I'm like investing in stocks with.
It's a beautiful thing, but it takes a lot of education, right? And that's why we have the show. And that's why, Paul's been able to, lead Fortune Builders in the Passive Income Club, right? This stuff isn't easy, right? It's helpful to work within a community of those who have been there before. And Shively, I know you had some really great mentors over at Fortune Builders with Ann and Paul and everybody, but it's not easy still. There's still a leap of faith. There's an education process and all that that's required. And Shively, you guys over at Fortune Builders have just helped so many folks, both on the active building of their real estate portfolios, but also on the passive side. Love to get some insight from you. Maybe, because what we see on the on the JWB side as we work together and help clients together is what we would see is the Fortune Builders folks that would be referred to JWB would have a plan in place. There would be retirement accounts that had already been moved from traditional retirement accounts over to self-directed retirement accounts, which allowed folks to invest in real estate and build a portfolio. So we got the opportunity to call it that pile of money with that client and build the optimal real estate portfolio for them so that they didn't have 100% of their retirement accounts in the market. And you guys have done that so beautifully for so long. Can you talk through maybe what are some of the big aha moments as you're working with students to help to where they are like Pablo and they say, this is what I want to do. I want to move my money. I want to be different. What are some of the big aha moments? And then maybe what are some of the key strategies to help folks do that type of planning?
Yeah, great question. And I've been, I'm super grateful, right? I've been able to be around Fortune Builders for almost 15 years now. Gregg, as you mentioned, we've been friends for 15 years or so. And over that time, gosh, it's about 6,000 families we've helped, right? And just on the single family transaction side, it's about, $1 billion of transactions, right? Which is great. And on, the commercial side, it's, $2.5 billion of transactions. So that community that we've helped, that 6,000 or so people, just on the passive side, like Passive Income Club, right? Just on the passive side, it's a big data set, right? And so we do have, and we know kind of the systematic way to help those families change that trajectory. Like my family was changed, that trajectory was changed. And some of the big things are, like you said, knowing the plan, and we'll get to that in a minute, right? I think that's vitally important because that gives you conviction in what you're doing. But at the beginning, it's the aha moment comes when you make the decision to take control, right? And I think that is the ultimate decision. And I was looking at some of the chats while you guys were chatting, which is awesome. And by the way, this community loves on each other so much. This is amazing.
That's cool.
I'm looking at the chats and I'm like, this community is awesome. I'm super glad to introduce the Fortune Builders community to your show because it's community loves on each other, loves to hear that success of everyone. This is fantastic.
I felt the same way when I got to Vegas, by the way.
This is amazing. It's amazing. And I think it's a great fit. The aha moment comes, and this is what we do, I think, at Fortune Builders is our mission statement is empowering people's purpose, empowering your purpose through financial education, right? Empowering your purpose through financial education. Well, what is your purpose, right? And what's that education? And that decision point comes from, well, are you wanting to take control of your financial future or are you not, right? And if you're on the show, I'd say probably 90% of you have already made that choice, which is great. But that 10% of you are probably still trying to figure that out. And then you're trying to figure out, well, if I do that, how do I do that? We can help you with the how, for sure. We can definitely help you with the how. Gregg's, of course, can help you with the how. I mean, there's a lot of ways. If you need help with the how, teach me, educate me, put it in the comments. I'm sure we can figure out a way to call you and get you rocked and loaded with some of the how of the mechanics of it. I don't think that's what this show is about, particularly today. But that decision is key. When you decide to take control of the financial trajectory of your family, rather than leaving it up to kind of the normal, traditional options that are completely out of your control, right? I have no control over what the Fed chairman says. Zero. I have no control over where interest rates are going to go. I have no control over stock prices. I have zero control over that, right? I have no control if I put money into a 401k and I get feed just for putting it in, and then they invest it and they get a fee no matter what happens. I am just like, literally the financial future is just, take the wheel. I'm out, right? And that's different. And that's what we help do at Fortune Millers. I think we help people see, no, you can take control. And here's the education of how to do it, right? And specifically around retirement accounts is you can self-direct them. You can take control of them. You can transfer them for those big institutions, which again, I love the institutions. I'm not want to demonize them. They're fine. They do what they do. And they're very transparent about what they do, because most people are fine going like this, right? We're not. So the ability to take your money away from those institutions and put it in an account that's still a legitimate retirement account with all the rules and regs and laws and protection and all that stuff, and then control what happens to it, self-direct it. And the ability you can self-direct it into real estate, it's like a light switch that goes people on. And then that's infectious, right? It's like, oh, wow, holy moly. I can do this. I can do that strategy in a retirement account. I can do this. I can put a rental property in there. I can put leverage on a rental property in there. Holy moly. Let's go. Right. And that's the infectious part. So that's, I think, step one. Step two, I think, is, and you mentioned it, Greg, knowing your why. Right. And I think what the Passive Income Club inside the Fortune Builders umbrella, what Passive Income Club did is really help people just get laser focused on why they're investing and what are their actual investment objectives. Right. And just ask them simple but difficult questions. Right. Do you actually need cash flow now, or do you need cash flow in the future? Let's be real about it. Do you actually want growth in your portfolio, or do you want income? Or do you want both? Everyone wants both, but let's prioritize them, right? When do you actually need, as you said, Pablo, need the cash flow coming in, right? And want the stability and predictability? Because maybe that's not for 4 or 5 years from now, right? Maybe it's not right now. Maybe you're able to take some risks potentially now to have some stability in the future. Okay. Or are you, no, hey, I needed to start investing yesterday. Okay, cool. Right. And then helping them really understand what their actual nitty gritty, down and dirty why is and why they're investing. If they can communicate that, then once you have the education in real estate, it kind of becomes crystal clear what strategy you should be doing and should be enacting, right? What types of rentals should you be stacking, right? Should you be using leverage or not? Those kind of things. The expert, we can help with that. If you get your why really nailed down, really nailed down, then kind of the path becomes clear in real estate, right? And that's kind of the, not a secret sauce, but that's what Passive Income Club really focused on, right? Is 100%. Helping people walk through that path. And then just not waiting for all the lights in your life to be green. Sorry, there's a garbage truck about to go by. Apologies. But not waiting for all the lights in your life to be green. You step up to a stoplight, you're not going to wait for all 16 on your pathway to turn green. You wait till the first one's green. And in my world, I just forced the first one to turn green. Right? But you just go, you just take action, you just do it. And like you said, it's a leap of faith. It's hard. Start small. One investment a year. Start small, right? And then just grow. Just be consistent with it.
That reminds me of the first time I heard the saying that everybody is always asking the question of like, should I wait to buy real estate when it's really buy real estate and wait, right? Like that was John O'Clocky that opened my eyes to that one, right? Like it's this idea of the more time that you have in the game, right? Just like figure out how to get on base. And then at that point, once you have runners on base, someone's gonna take you home. And we just talk so much about the different ways to figure out how to get on base. And like this idea that people having money in their retirement accounts, right? Like what your 401k represents with your company, or an old IRA from last time you were working, whether you can take a loan out from it or you can go into self-directed to then invest with it, has all these different options that people don't realize, on top of just finding people to partner with and get in on these deals and do stuff like that.
It's really interesting. It seems like we have to like convince people that it really is about getting into real estate and then waiting. But if you think about how everyday people make their decisions to invest in their 401ks, which is in the stock market, what do they say? hey, listen, just start contributing to it. Don't really pay much attention to where you're putting it. Just put it in there and then wait. And in, 30 years, it's going to be great. So it's like, as a society, we're already conditioned that that's what the normal thing to do is in the stock market. And there's value there because over the long haul, the stock market has cycles and it does perform, call it 7, 8, 9, 10% or whatnot. You just don't exactly know when the bottom's going to drop. But why don't we just think about that for real estate too?
Yeah.
Get in and wait and let this beautiful asset class work for you. Like, why is that so different? Why do we have to try so hard to convince folks?
I have an answer because I've been dealing with it for the last 15 years, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing because I think you hit a nail on the head. So when you, I think, subconsciously realize that you don't have control and you don't have any education around it. Most people are not stock market experts. They're not financial experts, right? Most people, I'm not. I have no idea how the stock market actually behind the scenes works.
Right.
And I think there are probably very few people in the world who do, would be my guess. But if you know you don't have control, then it's easier to buy into, okay, well, I'm just going to set it and forget it. I'm just going to put money into it because that's what everyone does. And herd mentality, okay, should be fine. And it might be. But when we talk about real estate, most of us, I think, had the phenomenal opportunity to grow up in a piece of real estate, hopefully. And we have emotions around it. And we have an emotional tie to the asset class because we can see it, we can touch it, we can feel it, we can control it, right? And so then it allows us to get in our own way a lot easier because it's easy to not think of real estate as just an investment class, just like stocks and bonds and mutual funds and oil and gas and alternatives and crypto. And those are all just investment classes. They're asset classes, right? Just like real estate is. But we have this kind of innate knowledge because we grew up in some type of something with four walls. Hopefully most of us did. And if you didn't, I love you for it because you're amazing. And you fought through life and you're still here. I love it. But most of us grew up with a home, right? So we have emotions around it, knowledge around it, and we have these things. So what we need to do is rip ourselves out from the emotions and put on our investor hats and then work to get educated. Okay, I can control the outcome here, but how do I? How do I choose because we do still have to choose what type of investment we want and how we want to invest in it. But we need to treat it like an investment, not like, I'm the expert, because we know we're not. And that's okay. I need to not dominate the controllables is what I'm trying to say. Have enough education, partner with the right people to give you that education so you can dominate the controllables, right? But it's not it's if you choose which stocks you want to invest in, usually you're going to lose, right? The market's going to beat you. That's usually how it works, right? Like that's one of the pieces of advice I got for stocks was if you're going to go that route, don't pick them and don't try and time it. Well, it's the same thing with real estate, right? It's the same. Make sure you're investing in a good, solid market with a good team that knows what they're doing. And the fundamentals are all in place, right? Like make sure you're buying at a good basis. Make sure you use debt to do it. Make sure it produces some kind of income, right? Okay. Like it doesn't need to be that much more complicated than that, right? Yeah. And we can kind of take the same approach, but we get in our own way because it's something that we have emotions around, right? And we can control a lot more, right?
Well, and I wanted to we've been talking a lot about the complexity of this and the education that's needed, but the value of working with a team that has gone before you and has achieved a certain level of success in rental property investing or whatever you want to, aspire to be better at, right? The value of that mentorship is incredible, right? It takes this thing, which is really difficult for the masses, and there's a plan. There's a plan that's built for you, right? This idea of moving your money out from your traditional 401k into a self-directed retirement account or taking a 401k loan and showing you how that can be a real asset for you, that would freak most people out. But this is something that the JWB team gets to do all day, every day. The Fortune Builders team gets to do all day, every day. So the value, and just like Shiley, how you had Than and Paul on your hip early on to show you how to do this, and I did too in the very beginning, that same value is something that folks can have today, right? It takes that once you take control, once you understand the education, then it's like that fast track to actually making it happen. And, and Paul, I know, geez, in the clients' portfolios that we would build, it would go from it would typically be a couple of phone calls from the time that we were able to talk to one of your referrals to the time when they had built a portfolio of 3, 5, 7 rental properties, whereas it typically takes years for folks to get there. So while it does take some education, right, it doesn't have to be hard. You have teams around you that have been built to make this thing easy for you. And so that's a real asset. It's a lot easier today than Shively when you started to invest. And then when I started to invest in 2006. And so it doesn't have to scare you to get started.
Yeah. And that reminds me of kind of like our takeaway. A lot of folks, by the way, have been requesting the information for the class, right? So I've been like giving it to you on the Q&A, cool. But I'll be happy to repeat it. NYAIclass.com. And you put in NYAI guide free. Maybe Madison, you can share it in the chat one more time. But it reminds me of like the overall takeaway from the class, right? We spent all that time, and I'm sure Fortune Builders does the same, right? Like you provide this world-class education, you have all these amazing resources. When we finished, I didn't even realize that we would land on it, but we finished with this idea of like, now you know all this stuff that's happening. And one of the key things is to surround yourself with the right people.
Right.
And you can do that by joining a program like Fortune Builders, showing up here for the show, or, really more importantly, it's like, if you know that there is a team that knows how to do this, and that one day you want to be a real estate investor, right? Like whether you're like saving up and you think in 5 years, or you're thinking maybe in like the next 6 months or whatever, it makes a lot of sense to go to chatwithjwb.com and just like plan a call, take the first call with JWB so that you can at the very least understand what it should feel like when, you are like talking to a completely vetted team that, has been vetted by Fortune Builders and is clearly, like wins these best places to work awards and whatever. Just make time on your calendar in the next like 2 to 4 weeks to go to chatwithjwb.com and like have that first conversation, ask those questions, right? Like you can come here and ask, hey, what happens if this and this and this happens on this show all the time? And sometimes we don't get to it. Or you can just have your own half an hour of like, you're the star and you're the spotlight.
I had to do when I got started in 2006, right? This was before really, there was no Facebook, there was no Facebook groups, there was no shows like this. There wasn't a Fortune Builders in 2006, right? There was CT Homes, but we hadn't gotten to Fortune Builders at the time. So what I did to have a conversation like that, I went to the local real estate investors group. I was prepared ahead of time. I would see the people who I knew were the real movers and shakers that actually owned a rental property or two. And then I would just hound those folks and say, hey, listen, can I take you out to lunch? Can I do this? Can I do that? Yeah. And there was so much effort just to have a 30-minute sit-down conversation with that person. Yeah. And you have the opportunity to sit down with the JWB team. Fortune Builders obviously is a great resource too, but they'll tell you that when it comes to investing in rental properties, they're gonna refer you to talk to the expert here in Jacksonville that has been managing over $800 million of portfolios in real estate here for 17 years. Like, even if investing right now is the right time or not the right time, how valuable is it to have that one conversation?
Totally. Should we go over Paul's portfolio?
I can't wait. Can we do that?
I would love to.
Let's do it. You haven't seen this in so long. I know you
know. No, I haven't. Yeah.
But I don't think even on the past shows, I don't remember if we actually broke down your portfolio performance.
We have not. This is a new feature.
All right, big guy. Are you ready?
I love it, man.
So this is what we do for all of our client journeys. And, I break down your actual portfolio, and then I sprinkle in a little thing called home price appreciation to show you the value of all 5 of your profit centers. And we get to see what your internal rate of return is.
And this is great because this is a great example of the 2 that I've set aside with JWB specifically for my dad, which is cool, right?
Super cool.
So like tie it all back together, right? Because I've got, been fortunate to have a substantial portfolio in my life and be blessed with that. But these ones are specifically like my dad's, which is cool, right? So these are the ones that you're going to go through that are funding my dad's ability to go to Bandon with me, go hang out, not have to work if he doesn't want to. So like, this is, when you see these are exactly my dad's quality of life that you're helping.
It's amazing, man. Right? It's amazing. So, and what's your dad's first name?
My dad, it goes by Marty. His real name's Harry,
right.
But he goes by Marty. Yeah.
Couldn't remember. All right. So this is Paul/Marty's portfolio right here. So we've got those 2 properties right here. This is the first one that you purchased in 2014, which is that one on Rojero Road. I remember talking to you about this one.
Yeah.
Remember when we were choosing that one for you? Yeah. You bought in 2014, you financed it conventionally. purchase price there of $120,000. Do you know that in 2014, when properties were selling for $120,000, and I know you didn't think this, Shively, but a lot of people out there were like, man, I can't imagine spending $120,000 on a piece of real estate. I think that's bonkers, right?
Yeah.
Can you believe that, right? Well,
Yeah.
we're going to tell you what the home is worth today in just a second here. We had another one in
Can we-
2017.
Can I pause on that for a second, though?
Of course.
I feel like that's an important point because I feel like that ties into what's going on right now. And I'm not trying to steal any thunder, Greg. I just wanted to circle the point and really make sure people understand this, because the objection then is kind of the same as the objection now of, well, there's no way I'm going to spend what I'm spending right now on a piece of real estate because of the interest rates, or because of real estate's going to crash, or because of X, Y, and Z, whatever objection. It's the same. It's the same objection packaged differently, right? It's the same damn
100%.
thing. And I saw a couple of chats and I love them for it because they're being honest and real. Oh, I wish I had gotten started when I was in my 20s, like Paul did. Hey, great. Everyone does. What is in your control now? Dominate the controllables. Make the decision to take control now and do the best of what we got, right? Pablo called me on that earlier today. He was like, hey, that's out of it because I thought the show started at 9. I was on at 9. It starts at 9:30. It was like, He's like, hey, that's gone. Leave it alone. It's past. You can't control that, which I loved. And it's the same answer, right? It's
100%.
It's our job to help you hold you accountable. Is like, let's not lament that you are 45 or 55 or 65 or 75 and you are where you are. Hey, let's dominate the controllables now and learn what we're about to learn from Gregg, which is great, but apply it or don't. But that's your choice, right? Like that's your choice to dominate the controllables. Don't lament all the, past 20 years. Let's take the information and implement it, right? Or don't, but you're in control is the main take-home point, right?
The easiest prediction I've ever made is that in 5 years or 10 years from now, you're going to be kicking yourself saying, I did not buy more real estate.
Yeah.
I was saying that 10 years ago, I was saying that 15 years
Nobody
ago.
has
saying
ever
that
done
right? I said that when I started in 2006 and I was 23 years old, right? We've all said that. So think about what home prices are going to be in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. You're going to be saying the same thing. And there's just that confidence, especially when you go 10 years out for home prices, because that's how home prices perform. They go up over time. It's why it's called a real estate cycle. So there's that on Rogero Road. And then we've got Dandy Avenue. You gave me a call and you said, hey, I want to do something else for Pops here. And so we bought that one in 2017 for about 151 grand, conventionally financed as well. All right, let's take a look. So go ahead. Did you have something?
I was just going to ask you if I could pop this up.
Yeah, of course. So here's where we are, Mr. Shively. From 2014 to current here, these are your 5 profit centers of rental property investing here with JWB. On the net rental income side, if you remember, when you bought these properties, Shively, was there a whole heck of a lot of cash flow day one when you bought these properties?
No, there was, I think back then, $100 a month, couple $100 a month max. Yeah, something like that. It wasn't, but that also wasn't my main dominant investment objective, right? But yeah, there was cash flow, but not massive amounts. One property wasn't bringing in and changing the game, right? Income wise, which I think was the key. It was build an army of these things.
100%. Build an army, let them do their thing, buy and hold for a long period of time. And now we're 9 years later and we're seeing the fruit of all 5 profit centers. That's really the strategy when it comes to rental property investing. But one of the great things is that even though you don't get much cash flow right off the bat, by the way, you don't get much cash flow in the stock market anyways. So you don't get much cash flow there. It grows over time. It grows over time as your rents go up and your mortgage payments stay the same. So we've amassed over $12,500 of net rental income, which is a nice bonus.
Just 2 properties.
Just 2 properties.
Yeah, not bad.
Right? We have total tax savings here. So we get these tax advantages in this asset class that you just don't get in other asset classes, to the tune of almost $9,000 of dollars that you did not have to pay on the income that you earned. And then we got this beautiful thing called principal paydown. Now, again, this is only 2 properties, but there's been over $11,000 of loans that have been paid back. And Marty's not paying those loans back, Shively, is he? Who's paying those loans back for Marty?
Yeah, the tenant, which is nice.
The tenant. And we love our tenants. We love our residents. We want to treat them like gold. And we want to do that because that's the right thing to do. but also because they are such a big part of this profit for us as rental property investors. Because when they make the when they make the rent payment to you every single month, a part of that mortgage payment is your principal balance. And that gets paid down when you have a cash flow positive investment here, that gets paid down by your resident. And that adds up over time. And then we come to home price appreciation. So brother, I did a fair market value analysis on your two properties. Funny story here. Our boy Pablo owns a house in the 32277 zip code, and it is very close to your house on Rogero. So you guys are just literally like a couple of streets off.
I knew
Neighbors,
it.
buddy.
I could feel it.
Neighbors.
You know what you bought your property for?
Which one? On
Katina.
Oh, Katina, 225.
Yeah, 230.
230.
230 is what you spent on that one.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a smaller house. And that was about a year ago now, right?
About a year ago.
About a year ago now. And so when you total up your home price appreciation on your home on Rogero and also the one on Dandy, your total home price appreciation is over $230,000, Shively. And I also want to point out that this also includes any selling costs if you were to sell. And I'm not saying you're going to, but it's important when we're talking about real numbers here, that this is factoring in costs that would come along with selling too. So if we wanted to keep the most inflated numbers and just not count those costs that go along with it, the inflation number, or excuse me, the appreciation number would be much higher. How do you feel about that, brother?
I love it. It's amazing to see. And it's great to see that independently you verified what I verified as well too. These are some of the best investments I've ever made. Do we have 2 to 3 minutes for me to take it one step further as well too?
Of course.
Okay. So check this out. Go back to the previous, if you don't mind, where we show the visual of Rogero and Dandy. So what we did there, and Gregg's, that 230,000 of home price appreciation, but we're not going to sell. So how did I take advantage of that? Right? What was really cool was I learned early on from Dan and Paul, that equity doesn't help me if I don't touch it. Equity can grow when it's a profit center, 100%. But how do we get access to it without selling? Because I don't want to sell these things because I want them to grow over time, right? So what we did actually is we refinanced Rogero. We got the initial loan, put down 20, 25, 30%. I forget exactly what we put down up front. But we took that equity that had accumulated over Rogero and we said, hey, bank, the value of it was here and you gave me a loan for 70% of it or whatever. The value is now here. Can you give me a new loan that is 70% of this value? And they said, yeah, sure. We love doing that. We're the bank. We love lending money and making money when we lend money. Great. We'll do that for you. I said, great. I love it when you give me money because I can make money off the money you lend to me. So what we did is we refinanced it. And I pulled all of my initial investment back out, right? I had put in that, whatever, 25% of 120,000 is $35,000, whatever it might have been. When I refinanced it, there was so much equity built in, I was able to pay off the old loan, plus get all of my initial money that I had put into the deal back out to me. What did we do? Guess what? What did we buy with that money?
Did you buy Dandy?
We bought Dandy.
No way.
Right?
Very cool.
We bought Dandy with that money.
That's
right?
awesome.
So check this out. My internal rate of return blows up because I put $130,000, $35,000, $40,000 investment down, whatever it was, right? Back then to get into Rogero. Let time do its thing. Didn't get fixated on, is it the best piece of real estate that it possibly can be? And oh my God, I need a home run. I need the Apple of stocks before it becomes Apple. I have to have the best. No, I dominated what I control. I made the best decision I could at the time, right? And then I knew that real estate time helps. I let time do its thing. I used leverage, took it back out, helped grow the portfolio with my same initial investment, right? And then guess what, right? We're going to do the same thing on Dandy. Do it again and do it again and do it again, right? And that's what I love about these is, yes, the income matters, of course, but it's the long-term wealth building potential of real estate that can really change. That's what changes the financial trajectory of a family, right? The income is vital, right? Pablo, like you're talking about with your dad, having stability of income with his retirement age is a big deal. So he doesn't have to say no to things. That's a big deal, right? And that's an aha moment for us. So that's important. And that's what I like about going with companies that are steady and stable. have average length of resident stay in the 4 and 5 years. Like that's unheard of. It's crazy. Greg, what I forget, what's the average?
And 4.5 years for JWB, the average resident stays 4.5 years.
It's amazing, right? It's amazing. So tenant stays in there, or excuse me, the resident, I catch myself, sorry. The resident stays in there for a long time. We can kind of predict the future, predict that income stream, which is great. But that, again, that's just one leg of this, right? It grows over time. We get tax savings, we get all those things. And we teach you about those profit centers. But then when we teach you those kind of advanced strategies of how to use your equity to continue to grow the portfolio, that's how, you know, the folks I would say who are starting now and wish you got started 20 years ago, hey, it doesn't take that long. We can really jumpstart a portfolio, right? If you don't need to touch the initial investment for 2 or 3 or 4 years, if you still have that time frame, we can really do some cool things, right? You can do some cool things with the education and knowledge, right? And yeah, it was cool. In a matter of 3 years, what'd we do? We took one $30,000 investment, $35,000 investment, whatever it was, into Rogero, and turned it into now, what is this, Greg? Roughly $400,000 of overall real estate.
Good job on the math there, brother. That's right.
That's very
You
well.
absolutely have.
Right. So, I mean, that's why I get fired up about real estate, right? That's why I get fired up, right? It's like the long-term wealth building potential, along with the predictability of income, like Pablo, you talked about with your dad, like I talked about with my dad.
Yeah.
It's rare to find an investment class where you get both, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's what really is cool.
And what you're saying is essentially that you took your Apple stock, kept your Apple stock, and that Apple stock bought you Tesla stock.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's a great analogy.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great
We'll
analogy.
try to do that
yeah. And the last thing that I want to say
while
is,
still holding on to it, by the way.
the last thing that I want to say is, to the likelihood of you being able to do that again and us being able to do that again, anybody that's investing right now in Jacksonville real estate is about to live through like the greatest thing that could happen to a real estate investor in a specific city, which is the urban core is about to completely transform in the next like 2 to 4 years. And the rate of appreciation is going to go from, you know, this initial thing to like this thing, and this idea of, man, $120,000 was so much back then. Nowadays, people are looking at these houses and be like, man, 250 has got to be so much. They're going to be looking at it in the next 3 or 4 years, be like, damn, $400,000, $500,000. I can't believe it for a house in Jacksonville. Yeah. Like that's all about to happen.
It's going to happen.
So I've
lived it.
I feel like it is buying Apple before it turns Apple right now also.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, I love it. Let me put a bow on your return on investment there. So when you run the numbers here and you show, are we able to show that?
Are we showing this right now?
Yeah. Does the, okay. All right. So we've got the big pie there. You know, most investors have it twisted. They focus all of their time and energy on net rental income, and net rental income has a purpose. We need to have positive cash flow. I get it needs to pay for itself, but they spend an inordinate amount of time focusing on that. And they're like tripping over the dollars to pick up the dimes. Because when you look at your portfolio, Mr. Paul Shively and for Marty over there, what is the biggest profit center for you there? What's the biggest part of that pie right there?
Yeah, it's the equity you build over time, right? It's allowing time combined with leverage to produce that home price appreciation, which is great. And even, cool thing, even if home price appreciation goes back to normal. Like we've seen craziness, right? We've seen 12%, 16% per year. We've seen craziness and it's great, right? Even if we see 3% per year, 4% per year, 8% per year, more normal, it's still over time cranks, right? And we built that calculator, Greg. I know
Absolutely.
You have too. And I shared it with you that, you know, for profit center calculator, where we can even just put 3% appreciation growth in, right? Yep. And bank on the worst case. Right.
That's the thing. I get to manage these portfolios. And so no matter which section of time since 2006, when folks have been investing with us, you run this pie chart, guess what? Between 60 to 80% of their total portfolio returns from home price appreciation. Yeah. From home price appreciation.
Even in when people bought in 06 and 07 and it started happening right after it. Right. Even if you believe, which some people do and some people don't, that's okay. Even if you believe we may be headed into another 08 and 09. Okay. Great. Pull up those portfolios, and you've shown it, Greg, countless times, right? And I've seen it too.
Yeah.
The numbers are still there, right? Maybe it's not 87%, maybe it's 65%. And your total IRRs are in the 20s. Okay, that's still really good.
Funny that you mentioned that, Mr. Shively, because your total IRR, which is actually a little bit lower than what it is, knowing that you refinance, but there it is. You started with an initial JWB investment of $69,000 for those 2 down payments. Your current portfolio value is over $386,000. Originally, when you brought your funds to us, your expected return on investment was 12.7%. We are coming in at a 22% return clip for you. And that's 22% year over year over year over year for 9 years, brother. So happy for you. So happy for Marty. There's nothing better than helping a friend here being able to accomplish something that's worth so much more than money, you know?
Well, I'll tell you this. We will toast our scotch to you in Bandon in 2 weeks from now, right? Positive cash flow.
Man. I want to
The
picture
positive cash flow from those rentals are helping pay for that trip. And you know, it's what you said is so true, right? And I really appreciate it, right? It's emotional, but it's amazing to work with friends who actually care about each other, right? That's what I love about this community. Is there's so much love in this community and genuine rooting for each other, which is amazing, right? And the numbers there are great. It's amazing, and I think the thing is that is we can predict it. We can take control over it. We can count on it, right? And we know the strategies, and we've taught the Fortune Business community the strategies. Greg, I know you teach your community strategies. Like the how to do it is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Matter of taking control of it and implementing it, right? Implementing it, putting it into action. And that's the cool part, right? Because it's, you know, then things start to, and Pablo, you and I talked about it. Once you get going, things start to domino, things start to accelerate, things start to compound on themselves, right? Not just financially, but in life too, right? Like my dad's through this and able to have a better quality of life, and his finances happen to be compounding because he's investing more as well too, but his life is compounding because he's got more time and able to have less stress, and it's compounding in the positive way, right? So if you can get on that journey where your life starts to compound in that positive way, not just financially, which we can teach you all the ins and outs, but this is so much bigger than just a transaction, right? And if you kind of anchor yourself to that why, and you anchor yourself to what the outcome it is, not just transactionally, dollar amount wise, but what that is in your life you're looking to do, and you can clearly articulate that, then you know, we can definitely help you with the how to execute that. So.
I love that you bring that up. You know, what I am taking from that is the power of this community. And so we have a lot of new folks. Many of you are from the Fortune Builders community on the call here. Geez, over 110 people here that are still here over an hour. Would love to personally invite you to come back. Right? That's what this community is all about, the Not Your Average Investor show. We think a little bit differently here. We're a little bit not normal, and we love it. And so if what we've talked about today resonates with you, I know that you are going to love being a part of this community. We have 50, 60, 70 folks that show up every single show. And so would love for you to continue to come back. Would love for you to take part in that class that Pablo and I just put together. Like we said, we're offering it for free right now. It's something that we've asked for a lot of feedback from our community. And that's going to be free until the 19th. So would encourage you to go to nyaiclass.com, put in the promo code, which is NYAI guide free. Do that by the 19th. It'll be free. We're going to start charging for it afterwards. And just start to do what you're talking about, Shively, which is so much more than making money, right? It's a change in mindset. And once I know I made that change in my mindset, I can never go back to what I was doing before, right? And I think that's what keeps people coming back as a part of this community. So it's been incredible, man.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. I'm like, there's a lot going on in the chat. We had so many questions and so many people that I'm trying to answer some folks. Jatinder asked a really good question here saying he has a rental Jatinder has a rental property with a positive cash flow and a mortgage of 3.5% rate. And I want to take out equity, but interest rates are so high. What do I do? And I wanted to tell Jatinder, it's like, run the numbers. Like just, you know, don't be beholden to, man, it was this and now it's this. Control what you can control. Run the numbers. If you still have positive cash flow and you still can take out equity and pick something else up, you're going to be able to refinance that in the next like 3 to 5 years anyways. So like if you can still break even on cash flow by running the numbers and pick up another property or another great investment and like outweigh that until it happens and then refinance later on, run the numbers, right? Like take control of what you can
numbers
control.
To guide everything. I bet though with a phone call, we might even be able to keep that low interest rate in place and also help him continue to acquire properties.
Okay,
So
there
I
you
think it starts with a phone call, but yeah, the numbers would probably dictate that still makes financial sense to do. But if we could figure out a way to keep that low interest rate in and still help you get the right number of assets in your portfolio, man, now we're cooking with gas.
There you go. Chat with JWB.com.
Because it goes back to what we talked about earlier, Greg. I love you said that. In order to answer that, I would need to know what Jatinder's investment objectives are.
Mm-hmm.
What is he looking to do? What is the outcome he's looking to create? Is it income now? Is it income in the future? Right? Because if it's income now, then that may change the game. If it's income in the future, that changes the mathematical equation, right? The math will predict, well, because I've done this on my portfolio. There are some assets I'm okay refinancing, taking a higher rate, and being cash flow negative on in an asset or two to help me get into another asset because my overall portfolio is so positively cash flowing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's looking at it, it's playing chess, not checkers, looking at it from a whole. But here's the thing is, you got to know what you want. You got to really be dialed in on what you want. And then you have to be able to have the experts around you to help you look at it rationally, right? Yeah. We're emotional about, well, I have this interest rate and I want that interest rate. I don't know. Should I do this? Let's look at it rationally. Let's run the numbers, right? And we've got refinance calculators that we can do that with. And Greg, I know you do as well too. Like, jump on the phone. What is it, Greg? Chat with JWB.
Yep. Chat with JWB.com.
Rolls right off the tongue, just like NYAI guide phrase.
Well, I would go there, right? Like in all seriousness, go Jatinder, 30 minutes. Jump on the phone with Greg's team and let him run the numbers and then help you match your objective with what the numbers say, right?
Love it. We got a thumbs up from Jatinder. Gentlemen, it has been an honor to share internet space with you brilliant, good-looking men that know so much about real estate and manage so much money. I love being a fly on this elephant's butt right now. It's been wonderful. Just a lot of great knowledge. Really appreciate the idea that we still have 112 plus people asking great questions. Normally we get to all the questions that we do. Just this was just like two suns in two solar systems colliding, which was wonderful. We want to invite you to stick around, right? Like we do this every Tuesday and Thursday at this time. We don't take for granted the fact that this is the middle of your workday. So we always bring as much value as possible. And that's why we generally have 60 to 70 people on per call and hundreds of people on per week. So we invite you to stick around with us. You're going to get reminders. Come to the shows that you want. Next Tuesday is actually is it my story?
Unless we bump it again.
Unless, we've been having all this like great breaking news that we've been reporting on, like the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium deal that's going to change the game for downtown and real estate investors. But next Tuesday, we're actually breaking down my story and a couple of moves that I made because I took control of what I could control, right? Like I saw a looming recession. I saw a couple of things happening and I was able to preserve a whole bunch of capital that I would have otherwise lost because of some of the decisions I made, increase my cash flow, beat inflation with the stuff that I'm doing. So we're going to go into a couple of decisions that I made that weren't easy at the time and now have me looking like a genius.
You do.
I'm just going to say.
Just wait until we look at the numbers.
So we're going to talk about that and it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to share that.
Me too.
GC.
Me too.
But Paul, man, love hanging with you, dude. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Love being on. Love this community. Love the JWB community. Super happy to be here. I'll wait for a 5-timers jacket. How about that? My goal. I'm going to say my goal out loud and try to manifest it. I would love a 5-timers jacket.
5-timers jacket. All right.
I'm happy to be. I'm happy to. You let me know when you want me back, my friend.
Hey, buddy. We love you, man. It's really special to be doing some of the same things that we've been doing for 15 years. Yeah, how rare is it to have friendships that last 15 years and also to be able to have business be a part of that for 15 years? Like most businesses don't make friends, first of all. And then, to know that our friendship superseded this business, but that it's only grown for 15 years is really special to me. I super, super appreciate you. I love you, man. I appreciate you being on the show.
Love you right back, man. You guys take care.
I just want to say that I want to be doing this show with you 15 years. In 15 years.
Of course.
In 15 years, I want to have the same longevity. And I know that in order to do that, I'm going to have to continue investing, continue making great decisions, keep surrounding myself with great people like Paul, people in our community, building the portfolio. And more than anything, I know if I'm going to be here in 15 years, I can't be average. See you all next week.
See you.